Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I am sharing with you the books that I read in June. I read 5 books in June, 2 of which were for the BookTube prize, so I won't be talking about those today. Those are Song of the Cell by Siddhartha Mukherjee and Paradise Falls by Keith O'Brien. But I have 3 other books to share with you. The first book that I read in June was actually something I DNF'd a couple of years ago and ended up really liking, and that is Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones. I'm glad I gave it a second chance because I think it is a really, really good book. It is about 2 girls who are the daughters of a bigamist. So one girl and her mother are his legitimate, I suppose, wife. And the other girl and her mother are like the secret family. And the secret family knows that he's a bigamist and knows about this other family, but his actual married family does not know about this other family. So one of the girls knows about the other, and the other one is ignorant to the situation. And the first half-ish of the book is all from the perspective of the secret daughter. And then I do think was really smart of the author to then give that second perspective, because like you really feel for the secret daughter, Dana, and you really feel like a certain animosity towards the legitimate family, because you're seeing things through Dana's perspective and you feel the injustice and the unfairness of the life that she's been dealt. And so I think it was really important to then get that second perspective of the legitimate family, that daughter, Charisse, who didn't ask for any of this and whose life would be turned upside down by the revelation of this second family that exists. And I just think that the 2 perspectives work really well together, and you're just left, feeling that, both of these families are kind of torn apart by the actions of the father / husband. And it does a really good job of kind of portraying those very complex feelings that you would feel towards the other family, that you would feel towards your own father in the situation. So yeah, I think this was great, and I am so glad that I read it. The next book I read was on audio, and that was An Immense World by Ed Yong. It was narrated by the author, and this is probably going to be one of my favorite books of the year. It is nonfiction, like popular science, about the sensory world of animals, how they perceive the world. And it talks about the senses that we are familiar with and how those senses are different in other animals, how hearing or touch is different in other animals. There's some really fascinating stuff about a certain type of mole. It might have been the star-nosed mole, and their sense of touch and how that is like the fundamental sense that they have. But the book also goes into those senses that humans do not have, like sensing electrical fields and sensing like magnetic poles and all of these things that we study but we can never truly understand, because even when studying these senses in other animals, we can only research them using the senses that we have. Like, we can never perceive things as an animal perceives them. So even though we know these senses might exist, we can never truly understand them, and that just was endlessly fascinating to me. Something that I really, really appreciated about this book, besides the fact that it's super interesting and that it was very, like, the writing is wonderful, but something else I really appreciated was it really avoided a pet peeve of mine of anthropomorphizing animals. When people talk about animals, like if you're watching like a wildlife documentary or reading an article about some fascinating animal fact. It really irks me when we, the writer or the documentarian or whoever, kind of like projects human emotions or human perception or human morals or anything upon animals. Animals are different to us. That doesn't mean they are more than or lesser than. It just means they are different. And trying to explain an animal's behavior through a human lens just doesn't work. And he really avoids this pitfall beautifully. And it's kind of almost like a centerpiece of the book in a way, of talking about animals trying as hard as possible to understand their reality from their point of view. And so I really appreciated that. It's not easy to do. It is so easy to explain things from our point of view, or to think about, what an animal might be thinking based on what our thoughts are like. And he doesn't do this, and that's not easy, but I really, really appreciated that. This is definitely one of my favorite books of the year so far. And the last book, unfortunately, was not a hit. And that was this anthology called You Died, an anthology of the Afterlife. It is a graphic collection of stories about death, the afterlife. Anthologies are often a little bit difficult because you have a variety of different authors, and some you're not going to gel with. But I think while there were a couple of hits in here, the collection was by and large misses for me. And I think a lot of them were just like really, really short and didn't have time to get going. And some of them you could kind of sense that they wanted to be impactful or sentimental, or they wanted to pull on your heartstrings, but they didn't build enough character to be able to do so, or they didn't set the scene enough to do so. They just kind of came right out and said it. And I mean, I know this is cliche, but it was kind of a matter of showing versus telling, just coming out and telling me why I should be sad about the story of someone dying doesn't actually make me sad. But if you give a little bit of space to make me care about the person in the story, then maybe I will. If you show me, something about their experience. And like I said, there were a couple of hits, and I did tear up on a couple of them that did take the time to kind of show someone with their family, and kind of displaying the pain that is letting go, or the pain of leaving your loved ones behind if you are the one who is dying. And that particular story, there were a couple of like that, but one story in particular that made me tear up. The author gave the space to show how the family cared about each other and show what the family was going through, rather than just telling me in a text bubble that they were sad. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, unfortunately, most of these were just too short. Didn't let the characters breathe. Didn't let the story unfold naturally. So yeah, this was not the best, but I guess they can't all be winners. So those are the books that I read in June. If you've read any of these or they're on your TBR, I'd love to have a chat with you in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite book that you read in June was. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.